Maintaining your bike is a fundamental part of bike ownership, and to do so, you're going to need some tools. And there are loads to choose from, but proper workshop tools are an investment that will last for many years, providing you use them correctly. So let's take a look at some of the mistakes that people make when using their tools. We're not all fortunate enough to have been trained how to use certain tools or equipment. Many of us learn as we go, or we learn by our mistakes. But are you inadvertently damaging your tools through improper use? Well, I certainly hope not after watching this video. First up, Allen keys and Torx keys. This is an Allen key, this is a set of Torx keys. And one of the most important things to remember for these is to use the correct size. And this is particularly important when using Torx keys, because it's very easy to use one size smaller than the bolt that you're actually trying to undo, which means you could inadvertently accidentally round the bolt off. The correct size Allen key or Torx key will just be a snug fit. One of the next common mistakes that people make with Allen keys is using the ball end of the Allen key when you shouldn't. This is the ball end of an Allen key, and it's designed so to allow you to hold the Allen key slightly offset to the bolt that you're trying to undo if it's particularly tricky to reach. But crucially, this is not designed to be used when the bolt is particularly tight. That's when you should use the normal end of the Allen key that not only has extra leverage, but is far more securely fitted into the bolt head. This should be used only when the bolt is nice and loose. And the reason it shouldn't be used when the bolt is particularly tight is because it's not got very good contact points on that bolt, and it could round it out a lot easier. That's why the tight bolts, you should use this end, and you've got your long leverage too. A torque wrench is a measuring device that is carefully calibrated from the factory, and with correct use, it will stay that way for many years. However, what you don't want to do with your torque wrench is leave it wound up on a high setting for a prolonged period of time, or it could lose its calibration. Equally, you really want to avoid dropping your torque wrench or just using it for general maintenance when you're not measuring torque. Next up, screwdrivers. Now it's important here to learn the difference between all of the different types of screwdrivers that there are. There's Phillips, Posi-drive and flathead. But crucially, you need to know the difference between Phillips and Posi-drive, because they do look very similar in their designs, but they are slightly different. And using the wrong one will mean that the tool hasn't got a good grip or purchase on the screw that you're trying to undo. And not only do you run the risk of damaging that screw, you could damage the tools as well. The next tip applies to all of the tools that I've just mentioned previously, and that is to ensure that you keep the tool at the correct angle to the bolt that you're trying to undo. And in most instances, that's perfectly in line with it, and that will enable the tool to get a good grip or purchase on the bolt that you're trying to do. Unless, of course, you're using the ball end of the Allen key, and then you can have it slightly offset. And this will mean that not only is the tool not going to slip, it then won't damage the tool, it won't damage the bolt, and crucially, you don't run the risk of damaging your shiny new bike. When using Allen keys or Torx keys, it's a great idea to use your free hand to support the tool as you're turning it to ensure that it stays in line and doesn't slip. So having invested in some great new tools, what you need to do is keep them clean and dry, because after all, tools are made of metal, so if they're left wet, then they will corrode, and you definitely don't want that. And one of the worst places to see your tools corroding away is in your saddlebag, because they can get wet quite easily. So every now and again, take your multi-tool out of there, clean it up, dry it up, and put it back in. Next up, don't hammer your tools unless they're designed to be hammered. This is designed to be hammered. It's got a metal end on it. This is not designed to be hammered because it's got a plastic end on it. However, some pesky person has hammered this in the past, and the reason you shouldn't hit this is because it's made of plastic and you run the risk of splitting open and damaging the handle. So those are a few common mistakes that we see people make when they're using their tools. And if you think we've missed any off the list, we'll get them down in the comments section below, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you have, well, consider subscribing to GCN Tech and hit the bell icon to stay up to date. See you later.